So I just want to open up by asking this question this morning. This is the first Sunday of a new year. Suppose you could change anything about yourself, what would it be? Where would you start? Where would you start? Now, lots of us may think we start on the outside. Like, I want to lose some weight. Or, for me, maybe one more hair. Or be taller. I know they're impossible dreams. Or from the start, you want to be a little shorter, maybe better looking, or you want to have your eyes become better focused, or you want your teeth to be wider. You want your legs to be stronger, or leaner, or more muscular. Where would you start if you were going to change something today? If you could just take a special pill, what would that pill be for? That would change whatever you wanted to start with. I think we all go through periods where we want to change something. We want to change our outward appearance. Teenagers are very prone to peer pressure. And they want to change. They want to look fashionable. Like I was asking my sister-in-law, and this is not critical, okay? This is not critical, so don't get upset. But I was asking the question, why do the girls stick their blouse just a little bit in their front belt? And I just wondered what it meant. And she just said, well, Evan, that's fashion. I said, really? That's fashion? But, that just shows my age, the generation gap there. I wouldn't have thought that as being a fashion statement. So, teenagers in a state of constant fear that they won't be liked because they don't look good enough. They always want to have the right shoes on, the right t-shirt on, the right blue jeans on. But don't think it's just teenagers who want to fit in. As we get older, we may get a little smarter. We may want to try to use a hair coloring.
Now watch out what you say.
Well, I was going to say, you may want to use a beard coloring.
I hope I recognize you when you color it.
You will. It still look the same. We want just the right shirt that fits. Just the right shoes. We want to try the right diet to get down to that special weight that we think makes us look best. We're going to start walking. We're going to start writing. We're going to make that change. Finally, you reach the stage of life where it's easier simply to say, I don't care. But I want to share with you this. One fact about how people deal with change. Their behaviors and their habits. People change slowly if they change at all. It almost made me think of a church saying. People change, and when they change slowly. It's not a quick change like you'd see The Biggest Loser on TV. It's not something that happens overnight. What's taken a lifetime to make you does not change overnight. So if there is anything we know about human nature, it is that people change slowly. If they would change at all. We fight change. In fact, if God didn't allow natural growth to take place, many of us would probably stay teenagers. Or maybe in their 20s. Or maybe if they have a choice to stop at a certain age and say, I don't want to age anymore, Lord, and you just stop. If God gave us that control, I wonder what the world would look like. And you could stop aging wherever you wanted to age. But God said, no, you're not going to have that control. You're going to be changed. You're going to be growing old in spite of what you want. And you're not going to be able to stop it. So there's some change you can't fight. I'll just tell you that now. Although people are trying to figure out ways to live forever. But I doubt it will ever succeed. It's a human being. We are human beings. We are creatures of habits. We are creatures of behaviors. Think about the struggles in your own life. What would you change about yourself? See, many times we worry about the outside when we really should be focusing on the inside.
Amen.
What would you change? Let me go back and ask the question, but let me rephrase it in a different way. What would you change about yourself on the inside, if you could? Would it be an impatient spirit? Would it be a critical tongue? Would it be anxiety or worry? Would it be an obsessive, compulsive behavior? Would it be a lingering resentment? Would it be a lust that you can't conquer? Would it be a quick temper? Or would it be a judgmental spirit? Would it be a disorganized life? You see, that hurt. Would it be an inability to say no? Would it be a mean streak that you can't seem to get rid of? So we all have things to work on. So many times we avoid the inside and focus on the outside, when it's the inside that has the most work that needs to be done. What would you change? Change is something that we don't know how to do it, you tell me. Say, Pastor Evan, I've tried and tried. And I've given up trying. I've just accepted defeat. I can't change that part of me. What do I do? How can I change it? Well, have you ever seen a commercial, watch unwanted pounds melt away? It's a metaphor. It sounds kind of funny, I know, but you just take this pill and eat this supplement or drink this super duper energy drink, and presto, those unwanted pounds will melt away in a matter of days. But the reality is change is hard. Amen?
Amen.
Especially when you're dealing with the inside change. I mean, it's easy to change the outside. Buy new clothes, get new shoes, change your appearance, color your beard. There's always one in the crowd.
And he belongs to you.
And he belongs to me, that's why. That's why I expect it. But sometimes we need to make outward changes, and I agree, but it's not the outward stuff that trips us up, is it? It's the stuff on the inside that we can't seem to fix ourselves. Which brings me to my text this morning in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And you've heard it before, and I've preached on it before. I'm preaching on you might say, a different angle today. I'm approaching it from a different direction. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. We are always, as we become disciples of Jesus Christ, in the process of growing or becoming stagnant. We're either growing or not growing.
Amen.
I mean, that's just a natural, natural fact. When you plant a seed, the seed either grows or doesn't grow. Well, it may grow just a little bit, but it stops. Eventually, it stops. But in this case, we can determine the growth. And God can be our helper. And I want to make sure that we understand, to know that knowledge alone will not save us. Understand that. Understand that Bible studies and in Sunday schools and listening to tapes and books. And knowledge alone will certainly not change us. It doesn't hurt to have the understanding. God uses that understanding. Don't get me wrong. I'm not rejecting intelligence. I'm not rejecting learning. I mean, I spent 16, 17 years in a classroom. But you got to do something about the knowledge you have. It's amazing how much knowledge people have, but never use it. Never apply it. It's like a doctor going to medical school and never practicing medicine. A lawyer going to law school and never practicing law. A teacher going to college to be a teacher and never stepping in a classroom. A Christian going to church all the time and not practicing being a Christian. They have all the knowledge, but they haven't been able to translate the knowledge to the heart. And that's where some of the change needs to begin, in that transference of what we know to move it from our head to our heart. So, what we must be I'm going to use a word called transfigured, because it's very similar to being transformed. And be patient with me, because I'm going to get in some Greek, and I don't want to bore you with this, but I think it's helpful for our understanding of what Paul's getting at here. Note that the word transfigured in the Greek word for transformed. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Related to the English word, very closely related to the word metamorphosis. Is very closely related to the word metamorphosis. You know, you remember those 7th grade classes in science where everyone catches a caterpillar in a jar? Maybe they don't do that anymore. And then you poke holes in the jar's lid, and you bring it to your classroom, and it's your little science project. This is Evan's little science project. We're going to watch this caterpillar, put a little leaves and grass in there. We're going to watch this little caterpillar build a cocoon and change into a butterfly. Or it might be a caterpillar. But it's a gradual change. The definition of metamorphosis is this. It's a gradual change on the inside that produces a total transformation on the outside. Let me say that again. It's a gradual change on the inside that produces a total transformation on the outside. So it's from the inside out, not from the outside in. I use the word transfigured because the same Greek word is used for the transfiguration of Christ. The word means change or transform from one thing to another. When Christ was on the Mount of Transfiguration, the disciples saw the glorified, the metamorphosed Christ, the true glorified Christ. That's why Paul was so moved that he wanted to build these structures there and just stay there. Because he was in the midst of the glory of Christ. In that moment, they saw the real Jesus Christ in all of his glory on that Mount of Transfiguration. And that's what happened. You saw what came from the inside of Christ was seen on the outside. All the glory that was retained within his body was shown to them. So what was on the inside came out, and his glory was shown. So all that time, they were walking with the man who had all this glory inside. But it was at the Mount of Transfiguration that they actually saw the glory revealed to them on that mount. So from the inside out, they saw this transfiguration of Christ. And that was the real Christ, the real glory of God, the true God. So when Jesus was transfigured, he ceased to be Jesus, he became the Christ at that moment, in that moment. But his time was not yet to come. But he wanted to reveal it to his closest disciples. That's why they call it the Mount of Transfiguration. That he was in the bodily form, basically a cocoon. But when he reached the top of that mountain, the butterfly came out. And all the glory of God was revealed. And man, I tell you, if I was one of the disciples, I think I might have said the same thing. Let's just stay here. Let's just stay here for a while. When you're at the Passion, I'm sure there were times you thought, man, I hope this doesn't end. It'd be nice just to stay here and live here. Because of the glory of God just makes you want to dwell in that presence. So as the caterpillar can't fly, but they were born to fly. That's the point. How do you solve the conundrum, the issue of the metamorphosis? When the caterpillar has been changed into a butterfly, it becomes what God has always intended us to be. Think about it. And I know I'm not insulting anyone by saying you might say we are all caterpillars. And God is waiting to make us into butterflies, to metamorphose, to transfigure us, to transform us by His Spirit into what He would like us to be in the form of Jesus Christ, His Son. That's what His desire is for us. And that's why change must be something that we accept when the Spirit guides us and leads us to growth. God is the one who makes us glorified. God is the one who transforms us. It was in the year 1464 that a sculptor named Augusto Dicentio began working on a huge piece of flawed marble intended to produce a magnificent sculpture, the Old Testament prophet, for the cathedral in Florence, Italy. He labored for 2 years, imagine this, every morning getting up in the morning and going in and looking at this huge block of marble. And your job is to try to make something out of that marble. For 2 years he went in there, and finally he labored for 2 years, and then he stopped and left the side of the marble there. Just left it. In 1476, Antonio Rossellino started to work on the same piece of marble. And at the same time, he eventually abandoned it because it was just too impossible to deal with. But in 1501, a 26-year-old sculptor named Michelangelo was offered a considerable sum of money to produce something worthwhile from this enormous piece of marble that they just nicknamed the Giant. It stood 17 feet tall, a block of marble, 17 feet tall, 8 feet wide, or wider at the time. And as he began to work, he saw a major flaw in the marble at the bottom of it that many of the other sculptors had given up on. That's why they gave up on it. They said even Leonardo da Vinci tried his hand at trying to sculpt that marble, couldn't do it himself, he even quit. But Michelangelo decided to turn that part of that flaw in the marble into a broken tree stump that would support the right leg. The rest he worked on for 4 years. For 4 years. Imagine that being your job. You think going to a factory for 4 years or something is mundane. Think about going 4 years into a place with a marble standing there, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do today? That's what you got to look forward to every morning. The story continues. It's been 4 years to produce the incomparable statue of David. Today, the 17-foot tall statue stands at the display at the Accademia Gallery in Florence, Italy, where people come from around the world to view it. More than a masterpiece, it is one of the greatest works of art ever produced. You won't find another statue as perfect as this one. And so they asked Michelangelo, how did you do it? How did you do it? For 4 years. Michelangelo responded in his memoirs. He said, in every block of marble, I see a statue. As plain as though it stood right before me. Now I want you just to stop for a moment. Imagine God. When you stand before God, He doesn't see a block of marble. He sees you as He would want you to be. He doesn't see the flaws. He doesn't see the faults. He doesn't see the sins of the past. He doesn't see all of our problems and little idiosyncrasies that, make us people we are. But God sees us how He wants us. He has a vision of what He wants us to be. But this is what Michelangelo said. He said, I saw the statue plainly stand before me, shaped and perfect in attitude and action. And I have only to hew it out. I have only to chip it away to get it to come out. The rough walls that imprisoned this lovely David, to reveal it to the others, that they would see it, that they would eventually see what I see. Isn't that a wonderful image of how God wants everyone to see His work in you as He sees it? And he kind of critiqued himself, and then he kind of just broke down. He said, I cut away everything that didn't look like David. That's why instead of going through a critique about how David, he said, I just simply cut away everything that didn't look like David in me. And I thought to myself, how does that apply to my own spiritual life? All of us are works in progress. A little children's song, Kids Under Construction, or Mendisa, the song Unfinished. While God is hammering and sawing, He continues the hard image. He sees the image that He wants in us, but God never stops working. What makes us think that God will ever finish the job? He's got a mind. In my mind's eye, I picture God as a sculptor looking through a rough piece of marble like me. He's working on a big chunk named Pastor Evan. And it's hard. It's a hard job for him. There are chunks that are badly flawed that need to be chipped away. Misshaped, they're discolored, they're cracked in some places. They're odd places. It's about the worst piece of marble a sculptor could ever find. But God is undetermined. He's undeterred, And one day He will finally finish His piece of work. So as we come to this new year, what pieces of marble do you need God to chip away for you? That the image of Christ could be seen more clearly through you, and God could be glorified through you. One needs to be chipped away so that the image that God sees is seen by others as well. It all begins on the inside. The change begins on the inside. What spiritual marble chunks need to be chipped off today? And the title of the sermon was, Please, Lord, please, change me. And I want to add, Lord, please, chip away. Chip away. Because I want to see what the final project's going to look like. What He sees, I want to have others to see in me. Is that your prayer today? Lord, please chip away at me. That people would see You more clearly. We come to a